Daily, we encounter official reports and carefully crafted statements that seek to explain significant events. However, once the media coverage subsides and the public announcements conclude, a critical analysis of the actual information conveyed becomes necessary. Charlie Kirk was far more than a subject of news headlines. He was an individual, a son, a friend, and a significant figure within a community that held him in high regard. In the aftermath of his passing, however, the details presented by authorities appear contradictory. The official account feels fragmented, contains inconsistencies, and at times seems difficult to fully accept based on available data. The reported sequence involves a positioned on a rooftop, employing a 306 and a single precise. Yet, individuals with expertise in ballistics and forensic science have identified potential anomalies within this narrative. Each piece of information released seems to generate further inquiries, and every unresolved question intensifies the collective sense of loss and the desire for a comprehensive understanding. How could an individual of such public stature become involved in an incident that appears to raise more questions than it resolves? In the absence of definitive clarity, we are compelled to ponder not only the identity of the responsible party, but also the nature and completeness of the information being disseminated to the public. The life of Charlie Kirk and the circumstances of his passing warrant a thorough and transparent examination beyond conventional summaries. To follow this ongoing investigation, access every new detail, and observe the story develop with precision, remain with us on my channel, follow the case closely, and ensure you are informed of all subsequent updates. The pursuit of answers commences here and relies on your engaged and attentive perspective. To comprehend the events fully, we must initiate our examination at the commencement of that specific day, meticulously reconstructing each moment. The occasion was situated in a populous public venue, an assembly intended to celebrate communal unity, dialogue, and shared principles. Security measures were implemented, at least those visible to the public, comprising a limited number of personnel stationed at strategic locations, surveillance cameras monitoring the gathering, and aerial observation of the adjacent area. Hundreds of participants had convened, including local residents and individuals who had traveled considerable distances, all united by the significance of the event. As the day progressed, the atmosphere seemed typical, filled with conversational exchanges, laughter, and a palpable sense of collective anticipation. Nevertheless, amidst this normalcy, a solitary, decisive action would irrevocably alter the course of events. Eyewitnesses recount a sudden, sharp disturbance, an abrupt sound that caused immediate stillness, a moment where temporal perception seemed to falter. Some individuals report hearing the distinct acoustic signature of a charge, while others recall a transient shadow moving across the assembly. Recorded video evidence depicts individuals reacting, chairs being overturned, hands retrieving communication devices, and a rapid propagation of confusion throughout the crowd. Charlie Kirk, situated within the trajectory of the incident, collapsed almost instantaneously, leaving bystanders in a state of profound shock. Law enforcement and emergency services responded with promptness. Initial responders arrived on scene, securing the perimeter, administering aid to those affected, and collecting preliminary accounts from witnesses. Within the subsequent hours, an individual named Tyler Robinson was identified as a suspect. The apprehension was conducted swiftly, involving coordinated efforts between local agencies and federal authorities. News organizations reported this development with considerable urgency, yet their coverage often prompted as many questions as it purported to answer. Early official communications emphasized a scenario involving a lone individual deployed from an elevated position and a deeply unfortunate outcome. However, both public observers and subject matter experts noted discernible gaps in the narrative. Trajectory reconstructions did not always demonstrate perfect alignment. The physical evidence presented certain inconsistencies, and the video materials released publicly offered only partial glimpses into the actual occurrences. By the conclusion of that initial day, the nation was collectively processing a complex mixture of sorrow, uncertainty, and profound concern. Families entered a period of mourning, while the community at large grappled with the challenging task of understanding what had transpired, leading to a multiplication of unanswered questions regarding the feasibility of the event's mechanics and the possibility of unseen contributing factors. Each unresolved query transformed the incident from a straightforward account into a complex puzzle demanding meticulous attention, rigorous analysis, and a dedicated commitment to establishing the complete and verifiable sequence of that day's events. As the immediate impact of the incident began to settle, analytical focus shifted towards the specific details of the occurrence, particularly the scientific and forensic questions capable of either clarifying or complicating the established narrative. Specialists in ballistics and trauma medicine commenced a detailed examination of the accessible informant, Tion, comparing the official version of events against the physical evidence. They raised specific questions that mirrored the quiet uncertainties of the general public. Could a single projectile discharged from a situated on a rooftop adequately account for the observed effects? Did the flight path correspond precisely with the alleged position? And perhaps most notably, did the characteristics of the injury align with those typically produced by a high-powered .306 caliber round? Experienced marksmen and forensic analysts observed that the dimensions of the exit wound appeared less extensive than anticipated for a projectile of that specific caliber. In standard instances, a round possessing such kinetic energy and traveling a significant distance produces a substantial and distinctive impact, a wound that is unambiguous in its ballistic characteristics. The visual documentation available to the public, however, portrays an injury that seems somewhat inconsistent with the reported firearm. These observations have stimulated careful professional discourse. Could the projectile have been of a smaller caliber or potentially discharged from a closer proximity? The analysis of firing angles and trajectory is equally critical. When recreating the scene, experts indicate that the bullet's path relative to the alleged shooter's location does not consistently correlate with the rooftop sniper premise. If the shot genuinely originated from that specific position, fundamental physics suggests a downward trajectory consistent with long-range ballistics. Yet specific video frames and witness testimony suggest a potentially more horizontal path, thereby challenging this explanation and raising the possibility that the official account may oversimplify or omit crucial contextual details. The potential use of protective equipment has also become a subject of scrutiny. Some sources suggest that Charlie Kirk may have been equipped with body armor, which could potentially account for the less dramatic nature of the exit wound. Other perspectives counter that visual evidence from available footage appears to indicate the absence of such gear at specific moments, thereby introducing further ambiguity. Regardless of the presence or absence of armor, the identified inconsistencies underscore a fundamental point. The publicly available information permits a degree of legitimate doubt and necessitates careful, methodical consideration. For Charlie Kirk's legacy, for his family, and for a public seeking understanding, these are not merely abstract technicalities. They are vital components of the truth that must be systematically assembled, examined, and coherently explained. Comprehending the motivations behind this event requires a detailed examination of the accused individual, not to preemptively assign guilt, but to explore contextual factors, potential motivations, and plausible influences. Tyler Robinson, the individual identified by authorities, possesses a personal history that investigators are meticulously reviewing, a background shaped by his environment, individual experiences, and digital interactions. While a significant portion of this information remains confidential, specialists in behavioral analysis emphasize the importance of identifying patterns over relying on assumptions when attempting to understand how an individual might become involved in an act of serious harm. What remains evident is that processes of radicalization are seldom abrupt. They typically constitute a gradual development occurring over time, influenced by exposure to specific ideologies, communities, and narratives that normalize extreme solutions. Digital footprints, including social media engagement, forum participation, and online interactions that are verified and publicly accessible, offer glimpses into this developmental pathway, illustrating how persistent messaging, algorithmically targeted content, or immersion within highly charged ideological environments can shape perceptions and subsequent decision-making. In Robinson's specific case, investigators have noted a trajectory of escalating engagement with material that questions institutional authority, challenges mainstream narratives, or frames direct action as the sole viable response to perceived injustices. It is crucial to emphasize that analyzing radicalization processes does not serve to justify actions. Rather, it assists in comprehending the formative influences that may have contributed to the mindset preceding that consequential day. Family members, friends, and acquaintances describe an individual who demonstrated instances of warmth, humor, and normality, a poignant reminder that human complexity endures even in the most extreme circumstances. These observations are vital because they reinforce that both victims and those accused are more than simplified labels within news reports. They are individuals molded by a confluence of experiences and choices, whose actions generate far-reaching consequences for entire communities. The interplay of radicalization processes, combined with operational planning, opportunity, and a highly charged environment, raises significant questions not only about individual accountability but also about the capacity of communities, digital platforms, and authorities to identify potential indicators and implement interventions prior to the occurrence of a serious incident.